Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Alvaro Huerta. That's actually not my birth name. My name is Alvaro Huerta, but I add the doctor so I could feel important. Mi nombre es Alvaro Huerta, Profesor Alvaro Huerta, here at Cal Poly Pomona. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Not that my students had a choice, but thank you for being here. And this great presentation that we have today at a great university, Cal Poly Pomona. I feel that Cal Poly Pomona is a fantastic university. Actually, it was good before I got here. Once I got here, it became great. So since 2014, it's been the greatest university in the United States. So I'm very humble about that. I would like to thank the people that helped sponsor this and the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Ethnic and Women's Studies, also Office of Student Success. The dean is here from SACE, Dean Pase. I appreciate his support, and there's some other people here as well. So for me, this opportunity to invite a brilliant painter, Salomon Huerta, is to show all of you that are here, young people and a little bit older than young, that if you have an opportunity, you can do great things. So this talk is not about Trump. I just put Trump on the book so that I can sell more books. It's really about diversity. It's about advancing and promoting our diversity as our strength. That's really what it's about. And that's what Cal Poly is about. It's about diversity. But it's also about building bridges and not walls. And this is why I feel honored to work here at Cal Poly Pomona, because when I'm here and I walk around and I talk to the students, I feel that I'm at home, and I feel that I don't see the type of discrimination that we see throughout the country. I don't see it here. I see that we value our diversity, and we value the fact that we're different, and because we're different, we're special. So today's presentation is two-part. One is Salomon Huerta. He's going to speak for the first half of the presentation, and then the second half, I'll be speaking, and then we'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A. So take advantage. Make sure you buy the book. It's only $19.99 plus tax. We take credit cards. We take cash, EBT cards. We also barter. Some like 2 servings of Panda was like 1 book, so we can work it out. So this is being live streamed on YouTube. So I would like to thank the 5 people that are watching today and to have this opportunity. So let me start with Salomon Huerta. Salomon Huerta is a Mexican. He was born in Tijuana, and we'll talk a little bit about that, his migration to the United States along with mine. He attended K-12 public schools in LAUSD, mostly in the inner city. He was raised in Ramona Gardens housing projects in East LA, also known as a big hazard for the gang. He attended, like many of you, community college. He started off at Pasadena City College. And then from there, he transferred to one of the best art design schools in the world, Art Center in Pasadena. This is where the major designers in the world attend this school. The ex-designer for Tesla, for example, attended Art Center in Pasadena. And thereafter, he became famous for his artwork having to do with back of the heads, houses, and then later he ventured into other artwork that has to do with luchadores and faces of black boxers. So a diverse field of artwork. He's exhibited in the best museums and galleries in the world, including LACMA, Whitney Biennial, the Gagosian. He's exhibited in East LA, in Italy, in London, in Germany, and as far in a far, far place called Rancho Cucamonga. No, just kidding. I always like to say that name, Rancho Cucamonga. So he's here with us today to show, to discuss some of his artwork that's in the brilliant book by Dr. Alvaro Huerta that you must buy. It's a special today, 1 for 20, 2 for 40. And the paintings that the paintings he'll show, that doesn't represent his entire repertoire of art. Those are just selected works that we chose, for the book that has to do with showing brown people in a beautiful way, in a proud way, countering the negative, the pejorative negatives against brown people in this country through art. So that's the idea here. Salomon is someone that is very humble, received his bachelor's from Art Center, bachelor's of fine arts from Art Center, and a master's of fine art from UCLA Art School. And he's very humble, and he's not political. In reality, he pretty much lets his art speak for itself. But today we have the advantage and the privilege of him giving us a little background about his art. So I think that's why it's important to bring someone like Salomon to Cal Poly Pomona, because in reality, if you think about it, he's not that much different than all of you, than many students from Cal Poly Pomona. Many students that had to work when they were at university, many students that had to transfer, many students that were first generation college students. So with the Q&A, take advantage of asking questions about, how he was able to make this giant leap, like Drake, started at the bottom, now he's at the top. And about the process of being an artist and what does it take. Okay, so with that, a round of applause for Salomon Huerta.
Okay, I'm gonna jump around. I hope I make sense in the process of doing that. This is a small painting I did when I was at Art Center, and it's about 5 by 9 inches. And I was working very small because I was like on a small budget, while everyone at Art Center was very like wealthy, and rich. Like I was like on $1 a day, having my cup of noodles and stuff like that. So uh, I used all my financial and money to buy a DJ system and rims for my car when I was at a city college. So when I got to Art Center, I had to get loans. Luckily, when I graduated, I was able to pay off those loans. But like not Art Center, now the school is 160,000 to graduate. Back then it was, I think, 1/3 of that. But now, yeah, so it's 160. So here in this painting, I was just interested in showing the contrast between the statue of David and the day labor, and I just was curious as to what it means when you put these two together, and that's as far as I took as like thinking about what I was gonna do with this painting. Can you go this way? I got it. When I went to UCLA, I barely got into UCLA because a lot of my work had to deal with the community. It had to deal with gang members. So they didn't see that I was going to make the transition between being like a community artist to being like a more like international artist, or more of an artist for everyone. Um, but luckily, I was I got in with some teachers that were fighting for me, and I wanted to do a portrait without showing the face, and this is what I came up with. And I was also thinking about racial profiling when I was making this painting. And this one I did it when I was going to art center, and it was about drive-bys. Living in the projects was pretty hectic, pretty like insane. It was, to me, I see it as like a hyper reality because everything was really intense. So it was normal to get together with your friends in the evening and talk about the violence that was going on like every day outside the neighborhood. And this one was about drive-by shootings. And it's charcoal, like in the size of the paper, which is like 28 by 36. When I was making these, like I was like the only student that was from a barrio going to art center. So when I was going to art center, um, at first, the first work that I was doing before I made this kind of work was just very commercial illustration work. But then once I got to this type of work, all the students were asking me, where are you coming up with these ideas? Where are you kind of where are you coming up with these images, and what does it mean? And then when I told them, they're from my neighborhood, I'm just sharing what's going on in the neighborhood. They were shocked, because they come from wealthy neighborhoods and they had no exposure to anyone outside their neighborhood like this. Does anyone here know Aslan Underground? In the back. um, Aslan Underground is a rap group, and they approached me to do this album cover for them. And what I did, this was like right after the LA riots. So they wanted something to do with the LA riots. So what I did, I got a painting of Peter Paul Rubens, the European master, and I inserted 3 gang members killing the pig, which represents the cops. Um, this is not. This is like very in your face and very kind of loud, and this is not how I like to do my work. I like to be more subtle with what I choose, but I did this painting more for them because that's what they wanted to do. So I was like a hired artist to do a cover for their CD. As you can tell, there's the light on the side because this painting is in my sister's house in the kitchen. Um, so it's always interesting when I have collectors come over who are the majority are white, and they come over for dinner and they see this painting. They all stay quiet, like, oh, okay, so. But yeah, the majority of my collectors are Jewish, um, and I have a small amount of collectors, like maybe um, 10 or 15 collectors who are Chicanos. There's not like a lot of there's not a lot of me in the art scene, and for that reason, there's not a lot of collectors. There's actually more there's more artists from Mexico in the art scene than there is Chicanos in the art scene. And there's more collectors that collect Mexican artists than there is collectors to collect Chicano artists. This is my sister-in-law, my brother's wife right here. So she wanted a painting. She wanted a painting with her wedding dress, and it's a small painting. It's probably like half the size of this painting. Um, and I did it in a traditional like retablo, like it's done on metal. I think it's done on metal or a piece of wood, metal. Um, I had fun painting the dress. It was really cool, doing all the colors. Because normally I don't use that much color in my paintings. But she was really happy. And then after this, a lot of other collectors wanted me to paint their wives or, their kids. This is a Blue Demon, and I had a show in 2008 of Mexican wrestlers at a gallery in Santa Monica called Patrick Painter. Um, I was trying to, because everyone keeps on telling me, "Oh, you're a sellout for not doing images of your culture," and I am and my my response to them is that I'm part of the contemporary culture, so I express more of what I'm seeing at the moment than me focusing on just like my Chicano upbringing or that. I mean, early on, the early work was all based Chicano, but I had a limited audience. So my goal was, how can I create a bigger audience? How can I do, like, I search for images that can reach a bigger audience, but still think about the ideas that I have with, like being Chicano. From the age of 9 to 16, my dad would always have me bring him a snack to his room. And I would bring him like some pan dulce or a glass of water or a glass of milk or a banana, and I would put it on the nightstand, the night table, and he had the gun there like ready in case anything happened in the neighborhood for protection. So I would always put whatever he wanted, his snacks or food, next to the gun. So later, like in 2005, I was thinking about how can I, no, in 2010, I was thinking about how can I make paintings out of that experience. So I started to paint the gun, and for like 5 or 6 years, I was painting the gun every now and then, until I finally came up with the idea of just painting the actual moments that I can remember from that time. And I had a show at a gallery called There. Um, and it was very successful. We sold 11 out of 12 paintings. So a painting that's 12 by 16 inches, so something like from here, to here, like one fourth of what you're seeing now, sold for 9,000. But I get 50% of that. The gallery gets the other 50. So I went and bought a new car. I was all happy. This is a painting of Frida with oil on panel and wood. Um, and this painting was done for a fundraiser for a friend of mine did a film, and he wanted to know if I can help him raise money. So I did this painting and other paintings and some watercolors, and we sold them and raised like $10,000 for his film. Um, And my sister was like, why don't you just do that for yourself, raise that money for yourself? And then I was sharing with her that when you do a fundraiser for someone else, people are more eager to buy the work because they know it's going for a cause than when you do it for yourself. So he was really happy, and I was really happy we raised the money. Dolores Huerta, when she was probably like in her, what do you think? Probably her 20s. I donated this painting and the next painting that's coming up to UCLA, Chicano Studies Resource Center, and they're gonna have an exhibition of what I donated to the college on October 17 at the campus. So if you're around, you can go there. It'll be free food and performance and art. This is a Chicano professor. Um, I think this painting was given to him, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Is that
Yeah.
Juan Gomez Pinheiro?
Yeah. Is that the last one?
No.
This is a painting of my mom that I did in 2005. It's like 14 by 14. I think when I did it and I showed it to her, she got really mad. She goes, because she says on that day that the photo reference that I was using, she said that she was mad that day about something, so that it made her think about that day, that I should have just put a smile or something, but I like the way it looks because, like there's everyone back then, you never see people smile. Like all the photos that we have of our family, no one is smiling. Everyone's very serious. So that's why I like it in reference to that. It's my same thing with my dad. It's a watercolor. I was invited to be in a show in Oaxaca where they invited artisans to exhibit, to do a collaboration with artists. Because in Oaxaca, they don't, well, here, we don't view artisans as artists. I mean, I do, but, like you know, the art world likes to have, like, they like to separate everything, like, and, like, artisans belong here, folk artists belong here, and commercial artists belong here, and fine artists belong here, stuff like that. So we did a collaboration where I did this much work on my piece, and then I would give it to the artisan from Oaxaca, and then he would add his touch to my piece, and the vice versa was done where he gave me something that was that had his hand, and then he would give it to me, and I would add something to his work. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to travel with my work. I recently had a show in Sardinia. I didn't go because it was a little pricey. It was like 5,000 just to go for a week. But I've been able to go, around the world with my work, and it's been really fun. And then I've been able to, at one point when I was making about 20,000 a month. I went and bought like $120,000 Porsche. I don't have it anymore. I had to return it. But I mean, I was able to enjoy that process of having. I mean, that experience of having money and being able to buy the things that I always wanted to buy, and all through my work. So it's been really fun, being an artist, and I don't think I would trade it for anything else. All right, thank you.
How's everybody? So didn't I tell you, brilliant artist? Actually, Dolores Huerta is our aunt. For your information, we call her Tia. No, she's not. Just kidding. I always like to say that so I can get into these VIP events. And so I want to take this opportunity to thank other people that have helped put this event together and supported me throughout my tenure here at Cal Poly Pomona. Dr. Dixon, Dr. Cadena, Dr. Gomez. We have Professor Lopez here and others. And then the wonderful people here at the library, Chris and others that do a great job in putting all this together in terms of the logistics and support also the fantastic people at Media Vision. I just say that because there's a quinceañera coming and they're going to my house to record, so got to give people some props here. So this is usually this next half of the presentation is usually about an hour, but I'm going to condense it to meet the time. So it should be about half an hour or so. So right now, when we're thinking about immigration, we're thinking about all of the negative stereotypes about immigrants in this country. Now, a lot of my research, or most of my research, because you're going to see most of the slides have to do with Mexicans, that's mainly because that's my clan, that's my peeps, and also because that's where my expertise lies. But I'm also very concerned about the plight of Central Americans, Haitians, and others. We see right now, like in the Caribbean islands, the devastation with hurricanes and things of that nature. So I'm very concerned in general about poor people, poor migrants, people that are part of what they call the other, or the marginalized or the disenfranchised. When we're thinking about immigration, one of the brilliant ideas that I've had is that we cannot look at immigration through the eyes of the Democrats and the Republicans. We have to look at immigration from a humanistic point of view. Because at the end of the day, throughout history, we've all migrated at one point or another. We've all migrated, and people have always migrated, not just because of economics, but because of war, because of famine, because of natural disasters, uh, because of family feuds. Like we had a family feud in my family, because people get married, and then sometimes there's good news, they get divorced. So people have to move around. We're always moving around. So my frame, when we're looking at immigration, my most radical idea that I have, and I'll probably get fired for saying this, is that we cannot see immigrants as immigrants, because has become a dirty word. And this country's always become a dirty word. The most radical position that I have is that we need to look at immigrants as human beings first. They're human beings. They're human beings on the move. And we've always been on the move. Every group of people has moved at one point or another. So when we're looking at the frame, how we frame things is going to determine how we see a problem, how we interpret the problem, and then also how we solve it. So the conservatives and the Republicans, and the people in power want to see the caravan, and have labeled the caravan, have framed it as a national security threat. MS-13 coming, and they're going to wreak havoc in our communities. We need to be aware because they're taking our jobs. These alien invaders. All of this language tells us that we need to respond by military force. Right? So when you frame something in that light, that means that the response should be a military response. So you have tear gas, you have armed soldiers, you have ICE, and you have all these. That's the response, because that's how it was framed. Now, I counter that we should frame it from a humanistic point of view, from a humanitarian point of view. So if you look at the same caravan, the same people that are coming, that came from Central America, about 6,000 of them, to the United States, and actually ending up in Tijuana, never making it all the way across. If we look at it from a humanitarian point of view, as a humanitarian crisis, then instead of bullets and guns and armies and tear gas and putting kids in cages, what do? How do we respond? Right? So the response is different. Now, if you bring the military, you bring them to set up tents. If you bring the military, you bring them so they can bring food from that people have donated. And you bring the different humanitarian organizations to bring diapers, water, food, medicine. So it's how you frame something. And it's the same phenomenon. So this is what I try to teach my students. They're not my students, they don't belong to me, but the students that I teach, is that we need to be critical, and we need to question. You don't have to listen. I really don't care, to tell you the truth, if people agree with me or not. I'm like indifferent about that, because that's not what I want. What I want is for you to question authority, to question the assumptions of the government, to question the assumptions of even your parents, and even your professors, and to challenge them, and to always be critical. Just don't question me too much, especially during evaluations. But when we frame something as a menace, then that's how government responds. So we need to be cognizant of that and not buy into the lies, that are being perpetuated about poor people leaving their countries because of the actual realities that they face are dire, and this is no different than what Europeans faced in the late 1800s with the Irish, with the Italians, with Jews, Russian Jews, and others, and also in the early 1900s. So this idea of invasion, this idea of the Mexicans, the Salvadorians, Hondureños are here to invade this country, it's a big lie. The only Mexican that has ever invaded the United States was Pancho Villa, and he only did for like a week and then he left. But in reality, the major we're looking about invasions and invaders is the U.S. government has historically invaded practically every country in Latin America, from taking over Puerto Rico, from invading in the early 1900s El Salvador, Nicaragua, from overthrowing the democratically elected Arbenz in Guatemala in 54, from overthrowing Allende in 72, in imposing a dictator with Pinochet, getting involved in wars in Central America with the military intervention. So the biggest invaders in history, apart from England and European powers, has been the United States, especially in Latin America. Okay, so in 1848, the United States took half of Mexico's land. So really the book has a lot to do with, one, on the positive, looking at portraying immigrants, in this case Mexicans, in a positive light, because Mexicans have become this menace to society, this target, but also to look at this anti-Mexicanism in the country, to look at the history of anti-Mexicanism in the United States. Anti-Mexicanism has become like an American pastime, like baseball and apple pie. It's always been with us. It hasn't received the same attention in terms of the brutal discrimination and racism against African Americans with slavery, with Jim Crow, with what's happening now with like Black Lives Matter responding to police abuse. But anti-Mexicanism has been a major component of this country. So just to look at a few examples briefly, one is during the early 1900s, especially during the Great Depression. Once the Great Depression hit, we see that the United States government, in responding to the Great Depression, deported over 2 million Mexicans, and at the time, the majority of them being citizens or residents, permitted residents. And actually, during that time, we didn't really have INS or ICE or anything like that. It wasn't until later that these things were developed. During the mid 1900s, from 42 to 64, the United States was in dire need of Mexican labor because of World War II, and because a lot of Americans that were living in farms are going to the city. So there was an issue here that we needed Mexicans. First we deport them, now we want them back. Oh, sorry, come back one, So with this program, with the guest worker program called the Bracero program, is something that for us is personal. This is something that is not just abstract. My father was a bracero, my uncles, and we can see the terrible living conditions. My grandfather was a bracero. Terrible living conditions that they lived here. This is the housing. And before they even entered the United States, they were sprayed with DDT. Now, DDT causes cancer. So this is how they treated the people that, if you treat a guest like this, this says something about you. So this is the way they treated my people, our people here. There was a brilliant photographer, and I'm glad that he was around, Leonard Nadel, and he documented a lot of this. So for me, it's not a question of being anti-American or anti-anything. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do that we have to seek out people that have a sense of justice and are able to document this, so that in future generations, like our generation and your generation here, we can learn about these atrocities. Because without this type of evidence, it could be brushed aside, or like if it never happened. We also see here during the Pachuco, during the Pachuco period here in Los Angeles, actually they came from San Antonio in the early 1900s, where zoot suiters young kids that dressed in these zoot suits. They had their baggy pants and these uh, coats and the hats, and they had their music and their dance. They created their own subculture, and they refer to this as the Zoot Suit Riots, the summer of 1943. But in reality, there wasn't the Zoot Suit Riots, because remember what I talked about framing is how you frame the issue is going to determine how you solve it, how you understand it. So in this case, it was more the U.S. Army, the Navy, I'm sorry, in conjunction with the local police, beating up zoot suiters in Los Angeles. How many of you here have seen the movie American Me? Raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand in the audience in YouTube. Okay, there's an opening scene there about the dad and the mom, being victimized by the Navy. So check it out. So in the early 1900s, we see during the Great Depression, Mexicans are deported. And it's not just about in bad times, but also in good times, Mexicans are deported. In 54, Eisenhower, the general, became president. He deported over 1 million Mexicans once again. Now, y'all have to understand that the World War II saved capitalism. It saved American capitalism. Because of World War II, and because the war was fought in Europe, the United States was able to overcome a Great Depression. So after World War II, there was an economic boom. The United States experienced a tremendous economic growth. They built freeways, built suburbs, built great universities. And even during this economic growth, we still find, or not me, because it's not we, but the government still finds a way to scapegoat Mexicans and to deport them, to blame them, for whatever's happening in individuals' lives in terms of unemployment, and to deport them and scapegoat them. So how many of you here are Dodger fans? I sometimes go for them, but when they traded Puig, I wasn't happy about that, but whatever. We grew up with Fernando Valenzuela, so that kind of saved me. So another case of anti-Mexicanism we see here in 1959, and before 1959, there was a barrio called Chavez Ravine. There was actually three like mini barrios within that, so there was three different ones, and it made up Chavez Ravine. Originally, the city of LA, using eminent domain, where the government can take your land and use it for public good, took the land of my people, and they ended up saying we're going to do public housing. And then once they took the land, then they say, oh no, we're not going to do public housing. We're going to sell the land to the Brooklyn Dodgers, and that's how they came over from Brooklyn, and this is where we see Dodger Stadium. So here, right here on third, my aunt is right here. Hola tia, right here on third. She's buried right there in third base. Uh, so when we're thinking about sports, and we grew up, my brother and I and my other siblings, we love sports and watching basketball, football, uh, but there's a cost a lot of times to that, right? We see this what's happening in Inglewood. They're building like a $5 billion stadium there. That's going to create gentrification. That's going to displace local shops and community members. So this idea, one thing that I focus on a lot in what I try to teach people in terms of how to argue is look at the contradiction. Focus on the contradiction of the argument. It's like if your father is like, be good, and then he's having an affair. It's like focus on the contradiction. Like I don't know, not that many of you here were alive at the time, but in 1987, Reagan went to Germany, and at the time, Germany was East Germany and West Germany, and East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Unions, the Soviets. Reagan, the actor, he went over there and he demanded that Gorbachev tear down this wall. And the brilliant professor Michael Deere, UC Berkeley, wrote a op-ed about this in the New York Times, and then later a book. So his argument, what Reagan did was go to East Germany, tear down this wall. demanding Gorbachev tear down his wall, but at the same time, he was militarizing the southern wall between Mexico and the United States. Reagan was. Tear down this wall, East Germany, West Germany, we're building a wall, or we're continuing to build a wall, militarize a wall, investing billions of dollars in what we see today. So we have to look at the contradictions within what government says and what they do. So for a lot of us, for me, being a U.S. citizen, I don't experience this personally, but I could see just by being a human being, the horror. It's like Captain Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, the horror that our people experience. When I say our people, it doesn't have to. You don't have to be Mexican or Salvadorian. You just, as a human being, that what poor people are experiencing, that just want to be here to work and have opportunity, in terms of ICE and the way they're treated and the way they're criminalized. So there's a moral imperative in terms of us as a society, and there's a saying that goes, you can judge a society by how they treat their prisoners. So when we have a society, a government that separates kids from their parents and puts the kids in jail, in prisons, in jails, that tells you a lot about the society, and it tells you a lot about the people in the society. Is like, what are they doing about it? Like, what is it that we're doing to respond to that? It's kind of like the Germans during the Holocaust. What were the German citizens doing when the government was causing an atrocity of global proportions in Germany with the Holocaust? So we have to respond to this, a moral imperative, that we cannot live in a society where young kids are being put in prisons. So for me, a lot of what I do, it's like the feminist of the 1970s. The personal is political. So a lot of my research and a lot of what I do has to do with my own family background, or my brothers as well. Here's a picture, for example, of my grandfather, my grandmother, and I didn't know. One of my cousins actually sent me a picture of a card. Uh, I didn't know he was a UFW member. My father met actually Cesar Chavez, and I write an article about that in the book, and Dolores Huerta in 1964. But my grandfather was also part of the United Farm Workers. Here's a handsome picture of my mom and dad. It's like those Hollywood, like the Mexican the glories of Mexican cinema. They kind of look like these actors and actresses. And actually, I think the paintings that my brother showed are based on these right here. So we grew up uh, in a Mexican slum. I don't really like to call it a slum, but because the people are not slum dwellers, they're just human beings. But the conditions were slum-like conditions. We're talking no roads, no paved roads, uh, outside bathrooms. You're talking here contaminated water. So this is where my brother was born, Salomon, and half my family was actually born there. And my mother was a brilliant woman. She was a visionary. I think she was smarter than I was, and I will ever be. And she had the vision of, because she was a domestic worker working in Tijuana, and she would come to the United States going back and forth. So she said to herself, well, while I'm cleaning houses in San Diego, I'm gonna have Alvaro here. So that was it. But in the little work permit, because she had a work permit, it didn't say you couldn't have kids here. So I'm what Republicans called an anchor baby. I don't feel like an anchor because I'm kind of thin, So, but whatever. That's what she did. And so, like 40 days later, it's actually in Sacramento where I was born. 40 days later, her comadre took her over there. It's like comadre network is like Uber. The comadre took her from San Diego to Sacramento. Is After 40 days when I was born, and I liked it there because there was air conditioning, the water wasn't contaminated. But I didn't really have a vote. It was only 40 days. So she took me back, and so I spent the first 4 years of my life in Tijuana with my family. And here, when we say family, we don't mess around when it comes to the Huertas here. All of these like shacks, that's like my grand my grandpa, my grandma, hola abuelitos, mi tía Yaya, mi tío Martín, mi tío Javier, they all of them kind of each had their own house. Um, so I'm the shorter one, and my parents and my dad, he used to like westerns, and because he grew up in the rancho, they had it was like self-defense. There was no police or anything like this. Everybody had guns or anything. It's not like romanticizing guns when we talk about this. It's just a reality. So we ended up moving from Tijuana to once I became a citizen and have my family. Well, my family, they every month they send me 10% of their earnings because I helped them get over because I was a citizen and because of me, they're here. So we have my uncles and aunts, and we moved to Hollywood, and then from Hollywood we ended up going to Boyle Heights. So, like my brother was saying, we ended up going to the Ramona Gardens housing projects in East LA, also known as Big Hazard. And in this case, what ends up happening, and I use this as an example, is about immigration. So when you're poor, if you're a poor immigrant coming, let's say, from Latin America or Asia or Africa, it doesn't really matter. Without any formal education, with limited capital, then you end up like in the inner city. If you're rich, if you're well off, let's say after the Cuban Revolution, you're Cuban, you have money, you're fleeing the revolution, you go to Miami, you don't go to the barrio or to the ghetto, you end up going to the suburbs. So it depends where you start. Okay, this is what they call like segmented um, immigration. So our family, no formal education, no money. We started at the bottom here. Uh, the Senator Kamala Harris talked about being sent to a desegregation program in terms of busing program, and she only went like 2 blocks. I don't know why she made a big deal about. So my brother and I, we got bused to Mount Gleason Junior High School in Sunland, Tahunga, about an hour. We had to get up at 6 in the morning. It was like torture. We were lazy kids, like teenagers. We were so lazy. I had memorized all the TV schedule because I didn't do any homework. And when we first got there, at least with my bus, I don't know how I went with him. It was like Alabama. They started throwing rocks at us. They called me a beaner, a wetback, a lowrider. And then when they said beaner, lowrider, I was like, I didn't even think that was an insult. Beaner, what's that? You don't like beans? So it's like, go back where you came from. They kept yelling at us, and I was like, East LA? I didn't want to come here. You guys sent me here, man. So when you grow up in this environment, when we grow up in this environment, is at least speaking for my brother and I, is that when you don't, at the time we grew up, you don't see any positive role models when it comes to Mexicans. You don't see on the TV. You don't see, and when you do see them, they're gang members or they're drug dealers, causing havoc. So at the end of the day, we wanted to be anything but Mexican. So we wanted to be black. We wanted to be like Muhammad Ali. We wanted to be like Dr. J because that's who we looked up to. So this is what it does, especially now when we hear this anti-Mexican rhetoric. This is what it does to kids. They don't want to be that because they're ashamed of that because the government and people in power and average citizens have made them feel this way. So for us, a lot of what we admired had to do with people like Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee. This is as close as we got to a Mexican. Uh, this is a painting that Salomon did about Bruce Lee. No, Muhammad Ali in 2015. So this is another painting on the gun, my father's gun. And when you grow up in a violent environment, like the projects, and it's not just us. If you go to MacArthur Park, if you go to South LA, if you go to different parts of the county, you, like certain parts of Long Beach and so on and so forth, you're going to experience violence. Not everybody, but some of us experience violence. And for me, it was kind of like, when Nietzsche talked about when you stare too much into the abyss looks back at you. So what does it do to you? What does it do to somebody when they experience violence? When they see people getting killed, when they see a police pointing a gun at them, because they're learning how to drive at 16. That was me. I didn't know that you had to stop at a stop. I didn't. I just did a rolling stop, and the cop pulled a gun. But after a while, it's not like you're traumatized or anything. After a while, you become immune to it. Some people, though, actually, the majority are traumatized. I wasn't, because I had the opportunity to leave to leave uh, to leave the projects when I did, in terms of going to college and going to Upward Bound, things like that. But sadly, for most of my friends, that wasn't the case. So for our parents were immigrants that were from the rancho, no formal education. So my mom, like I said, she was a visionary. She was brilliant, smartest woman I've ever met in my life, and she had a. And tell me if your parents have ever said this to you. Just raise your hand or close your eyes and raise your hand. Has your parents ever said to you, "I want you to go to school, so you don't have to work as hard as me"? How many of us says that? And it's not just an immigrant thing. Any parent that has suffered, that has struggled, has told their child the same thing. I want do well in school, go to college. They can't help you with algebra. They can't help you with calculus. They can't help you with EWS 4020. They can't help you because they themselves didn't go to school. But there's that immigrant drive. It's a big lie that immigrants don't value education. Immigrants value education more than anybody, because they know how hard it is not to speak English. They know how hard it is not to have a high school diploma, a university. They know how hard it is. And then a lot of them, let's say your parents are doctors in Mexico, but when they get here, those degrees don't even transfer over. So they still working hard. So this is the message that my mom had for us. And at the time, we never really got into trouble or anything like that. But my mom ended up telling my dad, send Alvaro and Salomon, take them. She told my dad, take them to Malibu so they can work as day laborers. So I was, I think, 13. He was 15. Every time I tell the story, I'm like younger and younger. I was 2 and he was 4. So we were teenagers, and I only speaking for myself. I was the laziest teenager in American history. I even got an award, a plaque. I was so lazy, I couldn't believe how lazy I was. So we went, and my dad took us to work in the yard, and we were pulling weeds, and I was so tired. And it reminded me when I used to go to church and everything. I was like, after half an hour, it's like, when is this going to be over? And then when people start hugging, okay, we're almost halfway there, baby. You know, and I was like, when is this day going to be over? Because I was already too tired and everything. And then my dad goes, okay, Alvaro, okay. And I'm like happy, because Happy Days was going to be on. And I was like, oh, it's time to eat. I said, oh my God. And I had a burrito that my mom gave me in my pocket. I opened the burrito. I was eating the burrito, and tears were coming down. And then I said to myself, I'm too lazy to do this. I'm going to go to college. So that's why I went to the university. So as a 17-year-old kid, majoring in math, I was UCLA freshman. And that's me right here, the good-looking guy with the sarape. So I ended up becoming an activist, a mecha activist, a mechista, Viva Mecha. Um, we had a hunger strike because they were trying to take away financial aid from undocumented immigrants. Then I became a community organizer after. This is another painting that Salomon did on when he did paintings on homes. And so one of the campaigns, I can't talk about all of them because we're limited in time, is I helped organize gardeners in Los Angeles. In 1996, the city of LA wanted to ban leaf blowers. And these magistrates, these lords, they decided that when you ban a leaf blower, the fines were $1,000, 6 months in jail, and a misdemeanor charge. So a few Chicano and Chicana activists, my wife included, and others, we created a coalition with the gardeners, and we created the Association of Latin American Gardeners of Los Angeles, ALAGLA, and we fought for the right for gardeners for the right to work the land and to defend themselves. So I believe, just wrapping it up here, in the case of Latinos and Latinas, I think our future in terms of leaders is going to be, is the Latina. I believe what Justice Sotomayor said about the wise Latina, and I think these are our leaders. These are the people that are going to take us to the promised land. Uh, and this is a picture here of a Chicana in the during the Chicano moratorium. And then we also have a illustration here by this famous artist. And then in UTLA, my wife's just a teacher, and East LA, she's fighting against charter schools. They just want to strike. So she's an activist against the charters. So just to wrap it up here, what is to be done? What should you all do apart from turning in your assignment on Monday? What should you all do? The first thing I think, and only a few things, not too many. I think the people here and the people listening on YouTube is that we need to use your privilege, whatever privilege you have. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have privilege. Speak up on behalf of undocumented. If you speak English, speak up and defend the undocumented. I know many of you here, because I was one of them when you were like 10 years old, you had to translate for your parents. So that's a privilege that you have, just speaking the language. But do that for people that are less advantaged than all of you. And I know that Cal Poly Pomona students, a lot of you have to work, and sometimes you don't feel privileged because when you go to the ATM, you can't pull out that 20 because you only have 19 in your account. That used to happen to me also. I used to keep looking, thinking the number was going to go up. It never went up. But there's a lot of people that didn't get accepted to Cal Poly Pomona. There's a lot of people that didn't go to college. There's a lot of people that didn't even graduate high school. So all of you here are privileged and use that privilege for the benefit of others. As I said in the beginning, we need to embrace our diversity as our strength. I sent my kid to schools where he was like the only Mexican there, and I felt bad for him. And then I told him, I feel bad that I sent you to school, and he goes, no, I feel special because I'm different. Well, that's a good way of putting it. And I want all of you, if you feel different at any point in your life, for whatever reason, to say that you're special. And don't say like, I'm into drugs and I'm different and I'm special. No, I'm talking about where you come from, the color of your skin, your gender, sexual orientation, your religion or lack thereof. Don't let anybody make you feel less than. We should advocate for bridges over walls. And the most important thing that all of you should do is buy this book. I think this book is going to save you from darkness and from misery. Anytime you feel lost and you feel confused, just open the book and your eyes will awaken and the sunshine will beam. So please buy it, because my son's tuition at Amherst College is really expensive. Please buy it. I didn't want to beg, but we're going to pass around a little. When my brother and I used to go to Santa Teresita, we used to get there late all the time, and they used to make us, we had to go collect the money. But I was always thin, and then I used to hit people on the head because I couldn't carry the. And then you had some people getting change and everything. Say, hey, man, leave that 5 there, dude. Muchas gracias. So we have 15 minutes for Q&A. So I need a volunteer to give the students the mic. Any volunteers? Not everybody at once? Okay. Okay, so does anybody, and mainly like for Salomon, because I'm here always and you can always ask me a question, but if you want to ask me a question like how did you get so good looking, all that, you can do that too. So any questions for Salomon or myself regarding the presentation, the book, the art? Come on, y'all. Remember I said that all of you are smart in class? Any just general question in terms about the art or how do you become an artist or you have to speak into the microphone because it's being recorded.
Um, how did you get your start as being a painter?
Well, I always did art, and I always got the support from my teachers. And when I was going to Lincoln High School, I did Saturday High at Art Center, the college, the private school. But it was mostly through support of the teachers, you know. And when I was going to Art Center, I didn't have a car, so I had to walk like from the Rose Bowl in Pasadena up that hill because Art Center was on top of a hill, which it was like brutal looking back. I don't know how I did it. It was like I think it was 2 or 3 mile walk, you know, to get to the art school, but mostly through the support of my teachers.
Good question. Extra credit right there. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, now for extra credit, I'll ask a question. Here, let me text you guys a question. Ask Alvaro, how do you get so smart? Okay. Questions? Come on, y'all. Okay, right here, young man. This is like GoPro here. Over here.
I know you were talking about that. Some people kind of called you a sellout when you're doing contemporary art with the things that you're seeing. How did that make you feel, and how did that affect your art overall as to how exactly you were to do the art from there on after?
Well, before the back of the head, you know, that painting of the back of the head, everything was using Chicano like imagery or just like imagery, of course. And so, like I said, I had a limited audience. And then when I went to UCLA, I said to myself, okay, I need to use the mainstream like visuals to articulate my ideas, but it's still my ideas. Like the back of the head is a different way of expressing a portrait, but the truth of it is about racial profiling. So a lot of people that were calling me a sellout didn't take the time to ask me questions about the work or about what really was I doing. So it didn't affect me. It just made me laugh. But in fact, since we're being recorded, I can't say the artist's name. But
Just show his face.
uh, oh, here's one of my friends, Robin, who I went to Art Center with. She's over there. I went to a party of this famous, I can't say Chicana, otherwise, or
No,
Chicano,
just say
a famous artist. and
Just give us the age and their social security.
and and she and she was treating me really nice. She was, you know, like being very like, oh, what do you need? Do you need a beer? You know, you have to meet this person and whatever. Everything. She was being really really cool at her home. And as soon as I left, my friend called me the next day, and she said, man, as soon as you left, man, she's talking shit about you, calling you a sellout, and you know, why did you sell out and blah blah. So if you don't take the time to ask questions about what I'm doing, then it is gonna look like, yeah, kind of like funny, like it doesn't really come out clear, you know, because I try to focus on ambiguity and on abstraction to express some of my work that I didn't show today. So once you ask questions about what the work is about, it's very clear that it comes from being a Chicano, you know.
So let me just say, if you want to see some of his work locally, we're gonna give the same talk. I have a different suit, but at California Lutheran on November 14th, and during that time in November, December, some of this work is gonna be up, and also other work. But just a commentary on that, I think a lot of times what you see in the art scene in Hollywood and just in general academia, is you have a lot of haters. You know, when somebody is successful, there's always going to be people because they're insecure. They're going to pull you down. Okay. With Salomon, he's very humble. He said, "Oh, I got lucky. I did this." No, everything he did is because he worked hard. Everything he did is because he sacrificed. And at the end of the day, when you grow up poor, when you grow up in Tijuana, you know, when you grow up on welfare and you make it, there's nobody that's going to tell you anything because, like, who are they? Like, were they there, you know, for you when you were in misery? So if you work hard and you do what you got to do and you always represent yourself in a dignified way, then there's nothing sellout about that. So it's just a lot of things. In my expert opinion, it's just a lot of hating going on, especially with our own people. We need to get away from that. Okay, otra pregunta. Another question? Come on, y'all. We got a few more minutes before Panda closes. Over there and then right here. So we'll have two questions here.
So my, I guess, question is more of a comment on your the image of the concha and the pistola right next to each other. For me, that really speaks out a lot. Just that image, it's so nonchalant how the two exist, just in one image, that it's so like that became such a normal thing in your life that this is what it was. And I associate conchas as like a growing up, it's like a dessert. It was peaceful, it was loving in a way, but to see it next to a gun, so nonchalant, just it's really mind-boggling, but amazing nonetheless.
Thank you. I wanted to say something really fast about the what do you call it, day labor image that my brother posted. When I first made it into the art scene, I went to a collector's home in Malibu, and he had a view of, you know, the ocean or whatever. And I was looking over the view, and I spotted two houses that I knew we worked on because they were near the the, the, the gas station that they would pick us up on. And I told the collector, "Oh yeah, man, I've been to that house and that house." He's like, "Oh, they're your collectors?" "No, I did their yards." And he was like, "Oh, he goes, "Oh, you're a funny person," he said, you know. But just wanted to share a story.
Actually, we used to make like, I don't know, it was $20 a day or 40. I don't forget what it was.
$40.
$40 a day, and he needs to take my money. So he owes me like with interest. He goes, "Oh, I need to buy some tires and rims. Can you give me the 40?" I was like a dummy. That's why I went to Berkeley, so I don't have to give him the money. Right here. Oh, aquí.
Where were you during the LA riots, and how did it affect you or affect your work?
You know, being raised in the projects, we experienced mini riots. So the night before, I was talking to a friend for like 3 hours on the phone about police brutality. You know, I was telling her how bad it is, and you know, and how they're racist and this and that, and how they're like targeting Latinos and African Americans. And she was like, "Oh no, no, they're not that bad. They're not that bad." And then the next day it happened, and then a week after she said to me, "Oh, what a coincidence," you know. But when it happened, you know, it's bad what happened to a lot of people in their homes and businesses. But I just pulled out a beer and some snacks and started watching on TV, you know, because now I saw like, it was no different than what we used to witness at a smaller scale in our neighborhood. It was crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of times with violence, and it's a question of, it's not just the violence themselves, but it's a threat of violence. It's like you don't know when it's gonna happen. This is why it's so dangerous, the rhetoric that's going on right now, this anti-Mexicanism, anti-Latino, Latina rhetoric. You know, what we saw in El Paso, in Gilroy, and other places, is the threat of it. And that's like where the terrorism comes into play. Doesn't mean it's gonna happen, but you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. You know what's gonna happen next. So when you experience it, and then you start seeing it now that now it's happening more frequent than before, then it's just that anxiety, right? So this is kind of how people that experience that, how they think and how it affects them. Okay, we have like one or two more questions, and that's it. Probably like one question. Otra más? Come on, y'all, you'll get a free concha. Okay, right here. Okay, two more questions. This one, and then she'll be our last one.
Coming from an immigrant household, did you ever face any backlash for wanting to pursue, like from your family, wanting to pursue a career in art? Because I know growing up in an immigrant household, there's a lot of fear, you know?
Well, they didn't know what I was getting myself into. They just saw that I was going to school, and to them that was enough. But my mom kept on pushing, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor. I'm like, I don't have that skills, you know. But just the fact that I was in school they were happy, they were really happy, but they were clueless to what Art Center was about. I mean, Art Center, and I'm not just saying this to hype up the school, and Robin can my friend can testify to that, was one of the best design schools in the world, and when we went, it was really hard to get into the school. Now, if you have money, you get in, but back then it was really hard. Like, I went in weighing 175. I came out weighing 142, and I was like this. I came out this light because I didn't see the sun for like a couple of years, because I would go in early in the morning when there was before sunrise, and then come back at nighttime. But it was hell in a good way.
Yeah. So the
They were more happy when he went to UCLA. They were.
yeah.
I told Mom, our center is good too. She goes, yeah, mijo, yeah, it's okay.
But and then he went to UCLA after. So yeah, I think that a lot of times they just don't know. They don't know, and I think for my brother and I, it was a little different. Because of the machismo. My dad was he was a macho, so he was very strict with my sisters. But with us, literally, they let us do whatever we wanted. Like if we wanted to join a gang and everything, she would, okay, mijo, okay. Good luck in the drive-by, mijo. Like we did whatever we wanted. Like we would go out or party, come back at 2 a.m, and like if nothing. One time I got home like at 6 a.m. My dad woke up, and he goes, "Oh, you woke up early? Sí, papa." But for my sisters, it was curfew and all that. So I think that liberty, that freedom to do whatever we wanted, without asking permission or none of that. We just did it. Like they didn't even we wanted to join football or baseball. We just signed up ourselves. They forged the signature. This is the last question right here, young lady.
Yeah, because our parents like to act like the girl is going to get pregnant by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why there's 2 rules.
Yeah.
Thank you both. I really love this collaboration with the word and with the art. Professor, I just want to thank you for reminding everybody about the framing. We're constantly in the bad habit of starting our fight by repeating what the right says, and we all, for discipline, have to stop doing that. Right? The point of argument is this is a human first. This is a baby being separated from her parent. Period. And how would you feel, and what would that feel like? So mostly it was just that, is to acknowledge this piece and to thank you for that, because we have to set that discipline, because even our media doesn't have it, right? Everybody's happy Jorge Ramos is on English TV. Yeah, okay, great. But he still keeps repeating what this, Agent Orange said about us as
Right.
Mexicans. So we have to stop repeating the actual message and lead with our own messages. So mostly it's just a thank you to you both and for the representation. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gracias. So with that, those kind words, I was wondering, why is he getting other questions? I'm not getting any questions. So. Nah, just kidding. I'm the one that said it. So with those fine words, and all of you, I appreciate everybody being here. This has been a very exciting opportunity. It's very stressful to organize something like this and get to this point. But once I see all of your faces and how smart all of you are, it gives me hope in the future, and also your values that your generation has that mine, unfortunately, they lack in terms of embracing diversity, of not judging others so much. Not that y'all don't hate, but but in terms of not self-segregating each other, and also fighting for the environment, fighting for things that are right. So that's what I believe in. I don't compromise in terms of justice, or I don't compromise in terms of family. At the end of the day, like I said, and that was said, we're all humans. But also at the end of the day, it's beautiful to be brown. It's beautiful to be black. It's beautiful to be white. It's beautiful to be every single color. So we need to embrace all of that, and not divide ourselves in against us versus them, and hope for a better future and a better world. And it's only going to happen if you all make it happen. Muchas gracias.